I was hoping to never do this game, simply because it's terrible. From the level design to the atrocious music, The Hunt for Red October is an astounding piece of terribleness, and now we're gonna play it until we win. There's really no complicated background here. The Hunt for Red October on the NES has a pretty plain and simple history. It was developed by Beam Software, published by Hi-Tech Expressions Incorporated, aka LJN, and there's only really a couple of nuggets of history I can throw your way. The first is that Hi-Tech Expressions Incorporated was a publisher, for the most part, but they did develop two games: Beethoven for the Game Boy, and the Flintstones Dino, Lost in Bedrock for MS-DOS-based systems. Yeah, let's be honest with ourselves, this is not a rich and fulfilling game company. Now, Beam Software, well, that sucked too. Unless you really liked their early Hobbit games on the Commodore 64, their history includes such gems as Judge Dredd on the Sinclair ZX81 Spectrum, the Three Stooges, and the Back to the Future games on the NES. Yeah, Beam Software are the guys, while not specifically credited in many of their games, did develop some of the more infamous horribleness on the NES. While Mattel, LJN, Hi-Tech Express, and Activision generally published the games, Beam Software, along with Rare, was responsible for quite a bit of childhood pain. Now, more specifically, it was one guy who designed the Three Stooges, one guy who designed Back to the Future, one guy who designed Back to the Future 2 and 3, and one guy who designed The Hunt for Red October: Andrew Davie. All I know of Andrew Davie is that he started off programming on the Atari 400, then went on to the Atari 2600, cut his teeth on the Commodore 64, and developed a relationship with Beam Software at the same time by making Asterix and the Magic Cauldron, a gaming classic. Eventually, in 1989, Andrew Davie moved away from the PC, as did most of the gaming industry, when the NES was released. He designed a whole host of awful games, including Archon, Bad Street Brawlers, Back to the Future 2 and 3, Bigfoot, The Hunt for Red October, International Cricket, The Three Stooges, which, by the way, I think is actually kind of an unappreciated game, and an unreleased game from Beam Software called Way of the Exploding Fist. Actually, that sounds really awesome. I kind of want to play that game. After that, he designed WCW Super Brawl Wrestling, and then disappears from the history books. The last I heard of Mr. Davie, he was working with a couple of partners at a company called Two-Headed Software, whose website no longer exists, and email addresses bounced back. The last known credit involving him was with a company called Hozier Video Games, in a game called Space Treat for the Atari 2600, which was released in 2002. Well, being a good internet sleuth that I am, I tracked this motherfucker down. He runs a forum called the Museum of Soviet Calculators. It's a lonely, lonely place where only Andrew posts, but it's his home. Maybe you should stop by there, say hi, thank him for The Hunt for Red October, link him to this video, get some promotion going on. Hint, hint. Now, with that being said, let's talk about The Hunt for Red October. According to Wikipedia, The Hunt for Red October, quote, features deep-sea combat, side-scrolling action, and cinematic sequences, unquote. Now, while technically true, I feel the game fails monumentally in several key areas, most notably deep-sea combat, side-scrolling action, and cinematic sequences. With that being said, of course, this game is really simple to play. You can move in 4 directions, but slowly, like you're a brick in Jell-O. You cannot turn around and face enemies that are behind you. You can fire missiles in 2 directions, though. Directly in front of you, and directly above you. Oh, and occasionally the forward-facing missiles will track enemies. I do not know how to control this other than spray and pray. There really aren't a whole plethora of enemies to talk about here, so I'd rather break this game down level by level. It'll be a shorter episode, but man, this took me a long time to beat. Level 1 is your basic introductory level. It's not too hard and does introduce you to the common enemies you'll face for the rest of the game, namely undersea mines and mini-subs. Dealing with these enemies isn't that much of a problem, you just need to blow them up. The real trick in this level is going fast enough to not run out of power, but slow enough to not get messed up by the latter half of the level. You'll run into some pillars that have turrets mounted on top of them. How in the world they have turrets mounted on pillars deep in the ocean, I have no idea, but they are kind of a pain in the ass. This is your basic introduction to how the game is going to screw you over time and time again. I cannot count the number of times I blew up because I was trapped between the turrets and missiles, or occasionally ramming headfirst into pillars because I was dumb. Now the good thing is, you don't need to keep your power charged. Losing power only really seems to mean that your radar doesn't work in this game. On the other hand, your radar really does help you figure out where the enemies are coming from and trying to blow you up. With some patience and practice, you should be able to make it past the annoying pillars and stupid walls. You'll make it to the open sea, to the game's first boss, a giant door. Yes. So your challenge here is to blow open the steel door. So, blow open the steel door, and then go through it. Now, after you beat each level, you're treated to a cutscene, and believe me, these are two of the most ridiculously drawn characters I've ever seen. Level 2 is really very simple. Weave through the narrow tunnels to the end of the level, or so every FAQ on the Hunt for Red October would let you believe. Yes, a simple level, one where you're not going to crash into the walls repeatedly and die over and over and over again, because the game is unfair and the physics engine doesn't kick in until you bounce your submarine away from the rocks, unless you have a good amount of inertia going, which means if just one pixel floats a little too close to the edge, it's going to damage you and blow you up. A simple level where falling rocks just happen without warning and you're expected to memorize their locations after dying multiple times. A simple level where you just need to move forward. Don't worry, you're not simply going to die, you're going to die. A lot. Now the big submarine at the end of the level is annoying to deal with, and it's a lot more difficult than any FAQ I've read claims it to be. In fact, one user even says, quote, just destroy it to complete the level, unquote. Yeah, so after experimenting with the lives of my crew many times over, I've come to a conclusion. The boss is not very well designed. Here's how I beat him. Position your sub near the mouth and start firing like a madman. This is the weakest spot on the submarine I could find. Make liberal use of your ECM jammers by jamming A and B down together, and if you have a well-trained Nintendo thumb, you should be able to move on to level 3. Otherwise, have fun navigating those tunnels again. Level 3 is supposedly another easy level. You're in shallow water this time, being assaulted by everything known to goddamn man. And oh, there are planes dropping multiple bombs above you. I only really have one piece of advice for this level. Move fast and pray to God you don't run out of ECM jammers. This level is all about staying low and not taking a boatload of missiles to the face. Oh, by the way, there's a secret one-up in this level. Every time a plane blows up, a little man in a parachute falls down. If you can wait and grab him, you get an extra life. I didn't, of course, because I didn't know that until I finished recording the game, but hey, the more you know. Now, the level 3 boss is a warship. Just spam your top firing missiles and take it down. You may need to move around a bit to avoid getting shot, but this boss is really, really easy. Next up, the Deep Sea Trench, and this level is a pain in the ass. Not only do you have to contend with increasingly narrow tunnels, you've also got to put up with 3-way fireball shooting turret things. What? This level takes a lot of careful navigation and pixel-perfect precision. It's not easy the first, second, third, fourth, or even fifth time through. Take your time and assume that everything is going to shoot at you the second you try to go around it. Eventually, you'll reach the open sea and take on this terrifying boss. The Undersea Laboratory, where you get to simply sit at the bottom of the ocean and beat it up. Wow! The Crystal Zone is next, and I don't remember this in the movie. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't remember most of this being in the movie. Actually, I don't remember any of this being in the movie, except for maybe 1 or 2 lines from the cutscenes. Now that I think about it, I thought The Hunt for Red October was about the undersea drama going on between the Americans and the Russians, and the overland politics going on between the Americans and the Russians, and how the political intrigue sort of almost created World War III, but thankfully it didn't, and we came out on top. Hey, you know, while I'm at it, does anyone else think that the Russian ambassador in these cutscenes kind of looks a lot like Beeper from the Muppets? Oh well, let's blow shit up. This is actually a straightforward level. The only trick here is that the crystals are unforgiving. If you slam into them, you're most likely going to die. Other than that, there's not a whole lot to say about this level. It's really plain and generic. Take your time, avoid the falling crystals, and eventually you'll make it to the boss. Supposedly, the boss is an underwater city. Whatever the hell it is, it has a gigantic bubble protecting it from everything. Only the bubble appears to be on the fritz. I've only really found one way to beat this boss that doesn't take forever. First, destroy the first 2 missile-shooting turrets, then sneak into the bubble when it's down, and fire away at the door that opens occasionally. This is the easiest way I've found to take out the gigantic city without too much trouble. Otherwise, you've got to contend with missiles that come from the ground that take out half your health and armor, then other little mini-subs with other missiles, and then you've got the other turret that's down there shooting fire, and it's a mess. Level 6 is the Tropic Zone, and it plays exactly like the other shallow water level. The only real difference here is the amount of missiles that will be dropped on you from the jets. Stick low to the ground, and you should be able to power your way to the boss. And the boss this time is yet another battleship. Just like before, all you have to do is avoid missiles and use your top firing missiles to take the ship out, and then move on. Just be aware that there's going to be submarines that constantly respawn, and there's nothing you can do about it. Level 7, the final level, is not a submarine stage. It's a platforming stage that plays like it was a bad DOS platformer. Hell, I think the physics are exactly like the DOS version of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. To put it another way, the controls are pretty awful. So, you play the role of a really old Popeye who is either scared out of his mind or for some reason has completely black lips. I'll let you decide. Overall, though, I think you're the captain of the American ship trying to stop the Red October from sabotaging itself and blowing up. I think that's the point of the plot we're in terms of the game-to-movie conversion. I don't know because I'm playing Popeye disarming bombs. Now, the level itself is stupid easy. You get 6 bullets, 4 enemies, and 6 bombs per stage. You disarm the 6 bombs, kill the enemies, and don't die. There's really not a whole lot to say about this level, except that you get to repeat it 3 times. Running out of bullets is bad, but don't worry. You don't just get 6 bullets. You get a reload after a short period of time. Now, the enemies can fire in 8 directions, but you do have health to absorb at least 3 shots. And the bombs are fairly simple to disarm. They'll flash white when they're ready to explode. Just stand in front of them to disarm them. A timer box will pop up when you're disarming them, and then disappear when they're done. Repeat this process until you win. And a special thanks to you guys supporting Until We Win. Patreon.com/LordCat if you'd want to support Until We Win. Thanks to Jim Pan, who's at Twitter.com/JimPan666. And thanks to Tyre2001, Tyre2001.deviantart.com. Thank you guys for supporting us. And if you want to support us, Patreon.com, Patreon.com/LordCat. And we'll see you next time. Ugh, Jesus, my man tits are sweating. Ugh. The Crystal Zone is next, and I don't remember this in the movie. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't really remember most of this being in the movie. Oh, God, fucking yappy dog son of a bitch. I want to put you on a grill and fucking cook you.